Welcome back for another deep dive, everyone. Today we're taking a close look at the AI in Action report, fresh off the press from March 2025.
Yeah, it's the second time they've done this biannual snapshot looking at how AI is impacting productivity here in New Zealand. So we're starting to see some really interesting trends emerge.
For sure. I mean, just to recap for everyone, this report's got a ton of survey data from New Zealand businesses and some really fascinating case studies, right?
It does, across a whole range of different sectors, too. So what we're going to try and do today is pull out the stuff that's most useful for you.
Yeah. Help everyone listening get a clear picture of what AI adoption actually looks like in New Zealand right now. You know, how it's affecting productivity, what it means for jobs, all that.
All of that, and maybe touch on some of the broader, ethical considerations and stuff that are starting to come into play as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely some bits in here that might surprise people. Okay, so let's just dive straight in. Big picture, like what's the overall situation with AI adoption across New Zealand businesses right now?
Well, the big headline is that AI adoption has really accelerated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, big time. The report shows a whopping 82% of businesses are now using AI in some form.
Wow, 82%. It's a huge jump from the last report, wasn't it?
It is. It was 67% in the previous survey. So big increase. And the thing that seems to be driving this is the rise of generative AI.
Right.
Tools like, Claude and ChatGPT, those ones that can generate text, translate languages, answer your questions in a really informative way.
Yeah.
And things like Microsoft Copilot, Perplexity.
Right. Yeah.
It's become the most prevalent type of AI tech being used, and businesses are really finding it useful for improving their workflows and increasing productivity.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, there's this idea of a bimodal distribution in AI usage that the report talks about.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit? Like, what does that actually mean for how businesses are using AI?
So basically, instead of seeing like a nice, even spread of AI adoption across the board,
Right.
what the data shows is kind of a split. So you've got a significant chunk of businesses, around a third, where AI is becoming pretty widespread, with about 33% of all staff using AI tools.
Right, so like a third of businesses are going all in on AI.
Kind of, yeah. And then you've got another big group where AI adoption is much more limited. Less than half of their employees are using it.
Okay.
And there are these funny spikes in adoption rates at like 50% and even 100%.
Oh, really?
Which the report suggests could just be people rounding up the figures,
Right.
But the main point is you've got this divide. Some organizations are really going for it with AI integration. Others are still kind of dipping their toes in the water.
Right.
So you might see a growing gap between the AI leaders and those who are just getting started.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so why is this happening? What are the big things pushing businesses to adopt AI?
Well, they pinpoint 5 main drivers in the report. The biggest one, by far, is the desire for, productivity and efficiency gains.
Right. Makes sense.
A huge 93% of businesses said AI has improved their worker productivity,
Right.
mostly by handling those repetitive tasks that take up so much time. Then there's this idea of competitive necessity.
Right.
In a world where AI is becoming more common, businesses feel like they need to jump on board or get left behind, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about saving money now, it's about making sure they can keep up in the future.
Totally. Makes sense. What else is driving this adoption?
Well, AI isn't just about automating what we already do. It's actually creating new opportunities, too. Businesses are finding that AI can spark new product ideas, new services, even entirely new jobs.
Okay.
It's the third driver. And then fourth, AI is just becoming more accessible. These tools are becoming more user-friendly, easier to get through cloud services and subscriptions.
Right.
And generative AI has really made it easier to experiment and get results quickly. So it's not as intimidating as it used to be.
Okay, so 4 good reasons. What's the 5th one?
The bottom line, the financial impact. A good chunk, 56% of businesses, saw a positive impact on their financial output thanks to AI.
Okay.
And an even bigger number, 71%, reported savings on their operating costs.
Right.
So that's pretty compelling.
Yeah. It's a clear sign that AI can be a good investment. So let's talk about how businesses are actually using AI. The report points to a strong preference for off-the-shelf AI tools.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. The data shows that a massive 73% of companies are choosing to use ready-made AI solutions, things like those generative AI tools we talked about,
Right.
rather than building their own custom AI systems, which only about 13% are doing.
Okay. So why are so many businesses going for these prepackaged AI tools? What are the benefits there?
Well, there are a few key advantages. Firstly, it's way more cost effective. You don't have to spend a fortune building a team of AI developers, and they can be implemented pretty quickly, which means businesses start seeing benefits faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speed is key.
Totally. Plus, a lot of these off-the-shelf solutions are designed to be user-friendly and to work with existing business software.
So you don't need a PhD in computer science to use them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't need to overhaul your whole IT system. And then you've got the reliability factor. These established platforms are constantly being updated, and they come with tech support, which can be a lifesaver, especially for smaller businesses.
Makes sense.
And then the final big advantage is scalability. You can start small and ramp up your usage as your needs change.
Right. Okay, so the message here is you don't need to build some crazy complex AI system to get results.
Exactly. There are tools out there that are effective and accessible for pretty much any business need in New Zealand.
Got it. Now, there's a really good example of this in the report from an e-learning company, right?
Yeah, Madeline Newman talks about this e-learning company that's actually using generative AI tools to build their own custom JavaScript applications.
Wow, so they're really pushing the boundaries there.
Yeah, it just shows how powerful these tools can be. Even companies without, huge technical teams can create really sophisticated solutions.
That's amazing. Okay, so where are we seeing the most AI action? What are the top areas where businesses are applying it?
Well, the top 5 use cases haven't changed much since the last report.
Okay.
It's mainly marketing, administration, software development, project management, and design.
Got it.
Yeah.
Why do you think these areas are leading the way?
It's mostly because they rely heavily on digital processes and data, right?
Right.
They're already working with tons of digital information, so AI just slots in really well. It can automate stuff, analyze data, optimize things.
Like so.
And also, the risks of using AI in these areas are seen as lower compared to, say, manufacturing or industries with lots of regulations.
Okay.
And businesses can see a return on their investment pretty quickly.
Right. So lower risk, faster reward. There's another quote in the report from Madeline Newman again about a professional services company.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
What was it they noticed?
They found that AI tools actually helped some of their employees with disabilities to participate more fully in their work.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It is, right. It shows that AI can actually make the workplace more inclusive and accessible, which is something we don't always talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so can you give us a quick overview of how AI is being used in these top 5 functions?
Sure. In marketing, it's a lot of data analytics, understanding customer behavior, personalizing campaigns, stuff like that.
Right.
Admin, it's mainly about automating tasks like scheduling, data entry, basic communication, software development. AI is helping with things like generating code, testing, and finding bugs.
Yeah.
Project management, it's analyzing timelines, allocating resources better, predicting potential problems.
Okay.
And in design, AI tools are speeding up the creation and editing of digital assets and helping with creative brainstorming.
Got it. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the money side of things. What kind of costs are businesses running into when they implement AI, and what kind of financial returns are they seeing?
Well, the good news is that most businesses are reporting pretty manageable implementation costs.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and this is similar to what we saw in the last report. 54% reported some initial setup costs, and 70% have ongoing costs for using AI. But fewer businesses are saying those costs go over $50,000 compared to before.
Right.
Probably because those subscription-based AI tools are becoming more common and more affordable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so are these investments actually paying off? Are businesses seeing a real financial benefit from using AI?
Oh, absolutely. Remember, we talked about how 56% of businesses reported a positive impact on their overall financial performance, and 71% saw savings in their operating costs.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them are actually putting numbers to those gains. Many are reporting financial benefits between $1,001 and $50,000, both in terms of increased revenue and reduced costs.
Okay, so that's significant. Now, there's this interesting point in the report that the relationship between AI costs and positive financial impact is actually weakening a bit.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation.
What do you make of that?
Well, it seems like as AI becomes more established and more widely used, the financial benefits are less about just throwing more money at AI and more about using it strategically.
Okay.
It's about how well you integrate those technologies into your business processes, not just how much you spend.
Right. Smart implementation, not just big spending.
Exactly. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room, the big question everyone's asking.
Yeah.
What's AI doing to jobs in New Zealand?
Yeah, the big one.
Right. Are robots taking over? Well, it's a complicated picture. On the one hand, a huge 93% of businesses reported that AI has made them more efficient,
Right.
but only a small number, just 7%, said AI has actually led to job losses. And that number stayed the same since the last survey. So it seems like mass job displacement by AI isn't the main story here in New Zealand, at least not yet.
Right. But there's that whole thing about hiring trends, isn't there?
Yeah.
The sinking lid theory or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is?
So a full 40% of businesses said they have less need to hire new employees because of AI.
Wow. 40%. That's a pretty big number.
It is. It's up 11 percentage points from the last survey. So what they're suggesting is that instead of replacing workers outright,
Mm-hmm.
businesses are upskilling their existing workforce to use AI tools.
Right. So they're training their current employees instead of hiring new ones.
Exactly. So it's not so much about mass layoffs, but more about a potential slowdown in hiring in the future.
Right, because AI has taken over some of the tasks that new hires might have done.
Exactly.
Okay, so while we're not seeing tons of people losing their jobs directly because of AI, the impact on future job growth could be pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
But the report also suggests that AI is creating new jobs too, right?
That's right. A good 62% of businesses said AI is leading to new job opportunities.
Okay.
So it's not just about automation and job losses.
Right.
It's also driving innovation and creating a demand for people who can manage, implement, and maintain these AI systems. And to support this, a big 81% of businesses are providing AI training for their employees.
Okay, so there are definitely opportunities here. How does all this compare to what's happening globally?
Well, there are some interesting similarities and differences. For example, the World Economic Forum is predicting a lot of new jobs globally because of AI,
Right.
which lines up with what we're seeing in New Zealand.
Uh-huh.
And the productivity gains are a global trend, too.
Makes sense.
However, some global predictions are saying there will be huge job losses because of AI. But New Zealand doesn't seem to be experiencing that same level of job loss, at least not yet.
Right.
The report suggests that maybe New Zealand businesses are focusing more on using AI to help human workers rather than replacing them completely.
Okay.
But it also raises the question of whether New Zealand might be lagging behind in using AI to cut labor costs. It's something to keep an eye on in future reports, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the report also dives into the Maori perspective on AI, which is super important here in New Zealand. What were some of the key takeaways there?
It's a really interesting area. On the one hand, it's really encouraging that nearly 40% of New Zealand businesses say they're actively engaging with Maori when they're designing their AI systems.
Okay, so they're including Maori voices in the development process.
Exactly. And that's actually higher than some people expected.
That's good to hear. Why are these businesses doing this? What's the thinking behind it?
Well, Dr. Karaitiana Tairu from the AI forums Kahui Maori Atamai Ayake points out that the Maori economy is a huge part of New Zealand's GDP. So, from a purely business perspective, it makes sense to include Maori viewpoints.
Yeah.
And he also highlights the importance of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, New Zealand's founding document, which emphasizes partnership between the Crown and Maori.
Right. But the report also says that most businesses aren't engaging with Maori in this way yet, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. Most organizations are still not involving Maori at all in their AI development.
Okay.
And even among those who are, there's a concern that it's often driven by individuals within those organizations rather than a systematic engagement with Maori as a whole.
Right.
So while that 40% is a good start, it's clear that more needs to be done. There's a need for more resources, guidance, and support to help businesses build strong relationships with Maori organizations.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you consider that the Maori population and workforce are projected to grow significantly in the coming years.
Mm-hmm.
Developing AI skills within the Maori community is going to be crucial.
Absolutely. It's vital for a more inclusive and prosperous future for everyone in New Zealand. Okay, so the last big part of this report is the case studies.
Yeah, these are always interesting. What were some of the standout examples for you?
I think they're so valuable because they give you real-world examples of how AI is being used in different industries in New Zealand. Like, take Maximon AI, for instance.
Uh-huh.
They're doing some amazing work in the marketing sector. They see AI not just as a tool for automation, but as a completely new way of approaching marketing. They call it a transformative operating system for marketing.
Interesting. So not just automating tasks, but actually changing the whole game.
Yeah.
What were some of the specific ways they were using AI?
Well, They talked about working with a healthcare company to analyze employee sentiment after a big crisis.
Okay.
This gave the company's leaders really valuable data to help them rebuild trust. Then there was this technology company they helped. They built an AI-powered system to automate content creation and gather competitive intelligence.
So they freed up a lot of time and resources there.
Exactly. And then they worked with insurance brands to personalize their messaging for brokers using real-time AI insights.
Okay.
And that led to much better engagement. Vikant Batra from Maxima makes a really good point. He says those old static marketing strategies are just not going to cut it anymore. The world's moving too fast, and AI is changing the game.
Makes sense. What about fractional AI? I know they were featured in the report.
Yeah, they're in the software development space, and they reported some really impressive productivity gains.
Right.
Like a 40–50% increase in productivity by using AI code assistants like GitHub Copilot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. The key thing here is that AI isn't replacing the developers. It's actually helping them to be more productive.
Okay.
Developers are spending less time on the boring, repetitive parts of coding and more time on the high-level stuff. Analyzing requirements, evaluating different approaches, testing code, and actually improving their solutions.
Right. So they're becoming more like architects or even artists.
Kind of, yeah. And Patricia Davila and Ren Sagriel from Fractional said that using AI has been crucial for improving their workflows and engineering practices without having to constantly hire more people.
Right. So they're doing more with the same resources.
Exactly. And they also talked about how AI has helped their team learn and adopt new technologies faster, like deploying apps on Google Cloud, for example.
Oh.
So it's not just about efficiency, it's about learning and adapting.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, there was also a case study about recruitment featuring Arcanum AI and Momentum Consulting. What was their focus?
They were using AI to take a lot of the administrative burden off of recruitment professionals.
Okay.
So Arcanum's Numa platform, which uses AWS services, has given Momentum Consulting things like an automated policy compliance checker.
Right.
And a really cool AI-powered knowledge base that you can search through. This has saved them a ton of time on manual tasks, made information easier to find, and even helped them improve their accounting processes. Nick Roberts from Momentum says that these AI tools are freeing up his team to focus on the human side of recruitment. Building relationships, understanding candidates' needs, stuff like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Asa Cox from Arcanum talks about how AI can really help organizations to unlock and use the knowledge they already have. It's like supercharging institutional knowledge.
Right. Okay, so moving on to a totally different field, we have Mott MacDonald working with Auckland Council on city planning. That sounds pretty interesting.
It is. They're using AI to manage stormwater more effectively in Auckland.
Okay.
So they've got a system that uses cameras and AI image recognition to spot blockages in stormwater pipes.
Right.
That helps to prevent flooding and allows for more proactive maintenance. And they've also developed a machine learning model that can predict the condition of those pipes over time.
So they can plan ahead and avoid problems.
Exactly. And they're even working on a real-time flood warning system. Steve Cooper from Mott MacDonald says the success of all this AI work is built on the fact that the council has spent a decade getting their data in order.
Okay, so good data is essential.
Absolutely. Without that foundation, the AI wouldn't be nearly as effective.
Makes sense. Okay, then we have Kuai AI working with a company in the fast-moving consumer goods sector.
Yeah, FMCG.
Right. Intelligent automation was their focus, right?
It was. They helped this FMCG company to automate a massive 80% of their payment reconciliation process.
Wow, 80%.
Yeah. They used Microsoft's Power Platform, which includes tools like Power Automate and Copilot Studio, along with an intelligent agent. This was a really manual, time-consuming task that used to take up a full-time employee.
Right.
But thanks to the automation, that employee can now focus on more customer-facing stuff, which is much more valuable for the business.
Okay, so it's freed up that person to do more interesting and impactful work.
Exactly. And Bex McPherson from Kuai AI says that combining platforms like the Power Platform with AI allows for really complex automation while still keeping data secure.
Got it. And finally, we have McLeod Cranes. They seem to be taking a really strategic, long-term approach to AI.
They are. Their focus is on building a really solid data infrastructure before they go all in on the more advanced AI stuff.
Okay.
So they've done a lot of work to consolidate their knowledge and data within Slack Canvas and structure it in a way that AI can use. And they've identified some clear starting points for AI, like in dispatch and customer service.
Right.
And they've already seen benefits like easier access to information and smoother operations, but they're expecting even bigger things from agentic AI, as they call it.
Right, like those AI agents we've been hearing so much about.
Exactly. Things like faster, more accurate dispatch, real-time insights into what's happening, automated customer service, two-way communication with their field teams, and smarter use of their resources. Scott McLeod from McLeod Cranes really emphasizes how important it is for businesses to get their data in order now.
Right.
He says that if you don't, you'll be left behind as AI becomes more and more important for business. He also shared a really cool example of how they want to use AI to give their workers real-time health and safety advice while they're out in the field.
Okay, so like a virtual safety advisor, right there on their phones or whatever.
Exactly. And he had some great advice for other businesses based on their experience.
Okay, like what?
Things like making sure your data is ready, starting with clear problems you want to solve, building integrated systems that work together, focusing on actual productivity gains, and taking a step-by-step approach to implementing AI.
Great advice. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the AI in Action report, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the main message is that AI is not just something that's going to happen in the future. It's happening right now, and it's already having a big impact on productivity in all sorts of industries in New Zealand. And while we haven't seen massive job losses yet, the way businesses are hiring is changing, and there are new AI-related jobs emerging. We also need to keep working on making sure Maoris are included in the development of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And those case studies really drive home the point that the benefits of AI are real and tangible. We're seeing them play out in all sorts of ways across the New Zealand economy.
Totally. From shaking up marketing to making software development way more efficient, to streamlining recruitment, to improving city planning, to automating financial tasks, to even setting the stage for AI agents and logistics, it's clear that AI has huge potential for New Zealand businesses of all shapes and sizes.
For sure. So here's something for you to think about as you go about your day. We've heard how important data readiness is from companies like McLeod Cranes, and it's clear that AI is becoming more and more important. So what are the steps you need to take, no matter what field you're in, to be ready for a future where intelligent automation is everywhere? We encourage you to check out the full AI in Action report. It's packed with insights that you can apply to your own organization and your own career. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.